Have you ever been on the receiving end of your husband or your father's bad mood that dictates the vibe of the rest of the house? I grew up that way, and it puts me in a very fight or flight mode. And if my husband comes home, and I can tell by the way he walks in the door, I can tell by his footsteps, I can tell by the way he shuts the door, the vibe and his mood.
Okay, that's my mutual, and she tagged me in that video because she knows I've been talking about this for a while. It's a great video. I'm going to tag it below. Got a sleeping dog back there. Look at his little lips on the seat. I haven't talked about this in a while, but I always have more to say because there's a couple things. One, men will absolutely weaponize their moods. And it took me a while to realize that men were doing this on purpose. Not always, but I'll speak about that in a minute. So many men are just, happy, hunky-dory, outside of the home, at work, out with friends, la, la, la. And it's almost as if they pause before coming in the door and being like, okay, different scripts. Now I am going to play the angry man who's going to put his whole family on edge. And so many men, as soon as they unlock the door, now all of a sudden they can't emotionally regulate. Now all of a sudden they're just grumpy pants all the time for no reason whatsoever, other than the fact that they're home with their children and their wives. They're just so miserable, but that's not how they are outside of the home. And a lot of these men are doing this on purpose to maintain the upper hand, to maintain power and control, to keep her on edge, walking on eggshells, right? Always, right? It's a power device. It is literally them weaponizing what they know that women are raised with, especially women who were raised by narcissists, maybe addicts, abusers, blah, 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 a king baby, somebody, usually dad, maybe brother or grandpa or some other man in the house. And sometimes it's a woman. I'm not saying women don't do this. Of course they do. But men, it hits different with men because they are in terrifyingly large bodies. And they have a long track record of using violence to control us. And so these men, even if they never lay a hand on you, never touch you, they're not abusive because they don't physically lay a hand on you. There's no bruises to cover it. But what they do with their moods, or sometimes by punching walls and other things, but just their moods alone, they are exploiting the violence of all other men. Right? They're exploiting your trauma responses, your social conditioning under patriarchy, and you knowing that the most dangerous person in your life is the man in your home, even though we don't talk about that enough and acknowledge that enough, but it is not the boogeyman hiding behind the bushes who's going to jump out and grape you. It is the man in your home, your husband, your dad, your stepfather, your brother, your grandpa, your uncle, your own brother. But it's usually a man if you are raised as a woman under patriarchy. And it's also a man that is the biggest threat to the children. So no matter what gender you are, but especially if you're a woman, you know in your bones that these men could take your life on a dime. Even the scrawny little guys somehow are more powerful in a shocking way. So these men who weaponize their moods to keep you in line, to keep the upper hand, to keep you constantly having a thermometer up the thumb. I always say that because it's anyway, a thermometer up the butt of King Baby all the time so you can never rest, so you can never relax, so you can never feel safe. Because if he's ever not happy, to quote Whoopi Goldberg, you're in danger, girl. So men will absolutely use their moods to abuse you, and at the very least to keep you in line. And we have never realized, a lot of us, it never occurred to us they're doing this on purpose. It never occurred to us that they would be so malicious and so manipulative and so calculated in their control and their manipulation, but they dare to call us the manipulative, controlling ones. Okay, this is why I warn y'all against men. Even if they never lay a hand on you, they will unalive you through your nervous system, through inflammation in your body. That's how women get, I'm not saying this is always why, but a lot of times women have chronic diseases, cancer, all kinds of autoimmune disorders that are life-threatening and life-altering just because they are on edge around these grumpy men. So those are the men who are intentionally doing it. But what my mutual is talking about, and something that I struggle with, is that it doesn't matter who the man is. It doesn't even have to be a man, to be honest. It could be literally anybody who's in a bad mood. I'm immediately like, ugh! Right? Especially if they have power, where there's a boss. But even if it's someone I care about, or literally anybody, I am like, oh my God, they're mad. I go into a trauma response. And I hate it, but that is how my nervous system is wired at this point. And so even when I'm around someone safe, who I know up here, and I know in here is not a threat, that I'm never afraid of, my nervous system responds as if they are that other man that scared the crap out of me, or those multiple men in my case, and the case of many women, most women probably, that scared the crap out of them. And especially if you grew up with this in the home, a man who everybody walked on eggshells around. This is so deep. It is so hard to undo this wiring. I'm not even convinced it'll ever be gone. But this is why I believe, I've talked about this before, that women are the ones who should have the man caves. Whatever they call them now, like she sheds, whatever you want to call it. Women are the ones who need a place to retreat, to hide, to put on their headphones. Obviously, like most people in general, I would say the majority of the world does not have a giant house with just bonus rooms. But since men seem to find a way to have a little man cave no matter how big their house is, unless, if they are, sometimes they'll literally turn a closet into their man cave. They have a little space where they just get to shut out the world and do their thing and literally tap out. Women never have that space unless they create it for themselves. And I believe because so many women, whether they had this in their home from their father or a relative or whatever, or they just experience it in society, being a woman out in the world, constantly afraid. Is he going to unalive me? Is he going to unalive me? Is he going to unalive me? Smile, smile. Don't kill me. Right? We need a place to retreat. We need a place to regulate our nervous system. And so even today, this happened today. And this is why I have to be very careful, because I don't want my husband walking on eggshells around me and my nervous system responses, because that's how it's like I end up taking it out on him, what these other men did. So, Anthony watches all my content. He's a huge fan of my work. Of course, he should be. He's my husband. And so he has become more and more aware, just from knowing me and also from watching my content and reading all the stories of the women who add their stories in my comments, that this is so common that women are constantly tiptoeing around men, that he is very much aware how much his mood impacts women in general, but especially anybody who was traumatized by abuse or a narcissist or addiction or something like that, where they had to, because a lot of men have this response too. If their dad was like this, then a lot of men won't get help and then literally just become their dad that they hated. And so he's very aware of this, and he tries his best to not let his moods impact me, because he's a very thoughtful man, a very emotionally intelligent man, and is very caring and kind. And yet it would be unfair of me to never let this man ever be in a bad mood, ever. Because if I had it my way, that's how it would be. He would literally never get mad. Now, I'm allowed to get mad. Thank God I finally let myself get mad. And he actually has helped me get in touch with my own anger, because I gaslight myself all the time. Literally, one of my biggest parts of healing the last couple years is letting myself be mad, because I wouldn't even let myself feel anger. I'm like, stop, Melanie, be grateful, blah. So he's actually created a safe place for me to be angry. And yet, because of all of my trauma, he feels awful if he's ever in a bad mood around me. That's why I have to work on not trying to control his moods because that's dehumanizing. It's not fair. But because I'm a woman raised under patriarchy, and I'm a woman who is raised to be incredibly codependent, chronically codependent, and especially as somebody who has struggled with someone with addictions in my life, multiple people, I have that savior complex, that hero complex, the save the day, got my cape thing, where I assume as a woman and as a codependent person that it is my job to regulate the emotions of everyone around me. And it's annoying because I don't like it when someone tries to cheer me up. I mean, he usually lets me be in whatever mood I'm in and doesn't try to change it. Occasionally he'll try to give me a pep talk if he thinks that's what I need. But if that's not what I need, I'll be like, hey babe, I just need to be mad right now. Usually it's not even about him. It's about the way TikTok doesn't pay me anymore and all kinds of stuff that I feel really angry about that I pour into and I don't get compensated for. But I'm working on that. And so he's like, okay, then be mad. He doesn't try to give me a pep talk. He doesn't try to change my mood. He's not toxically positive, and he's not trying to control me by making me not be in a bad mood the same way men have put that burden on me my whole life. And even when they didn't put that burden on me, I took it on because this is a trauma response. When you're a child and daddy is not in a good mood, you don't feel safe. It is no surprise to me that I became a comedian for a living. Duh. I literally made it my job to make people laugh and entertain them and hey, no, we don't need to cry. Crying's bad. We don't need to be mad. Let's just be happy because that is what made me feel safe. Please just don't make me feel threatened. And so one of my biggest parts of my healing journey is to learn how to regulate my own emotions and create that sense of safety for myself instead of making him, my husband, or that person, the stranger on the subway, or this person, whoever it is, be different, feel differently even about themselves so that I can be at peace. Because if you think about it, that's actually a very, I don't want to say selfish because it is a trauma response, but it is a very self-focused way to live. And it robs those people of their humanity in the exact same, not the exact same way because I'm not threatening violence, but in a very familiar way of my humanity being robbed of me by having to gaslight myself and deny what I'm feeling and thinking and everything is to serve the king baby, make sure he's okay, and silence myself. And so once I made that connection that me not letting my husband ever be in a bad mood, ever feel anything other than something that makes me feel safe and comfortable is really unfair and dehumanizing. Once I made that connection, I realized that, just finding a healthy partner who doesn't have a ton of trauma, who grew up in a very loving family, who creates a very safe place for me, that alone is not enough. It was hard enough to not continue to date trash and continue to chase after men who weren't interested in me to reinforce this idea that I suck, and if I can just get this breadcrumber to like me, then everything will be fine and I'll heal that childhood wound about daddy. It doesn't work that way. So even when I broke out of that cycle of dating trash and chasing after men who hated me, and even when I let love into my life, then it's the next video game level challenge is to not sabotage this relationship. And the same way that I ask men to work on their crap and not avoid themselves through addiction and other things, I have to work on my crap and not avoid myself by being obsessed with what he's doing, what he's thinking, how he's feeling. Because that is a lot of women are addicted. That's what codependency is. Everything hinges on how he feels. I'm not okay if he's in a bad mood. That is a terrible way to live. It's terrible for me, it's terrible for him, and it's terrible for us as a couple. And it's not fair. So that's why no matter what point in my life, I don't know if I will ever get to a place in my life where I don't have to continue to work on my own, regulating my nervous system, self-soothing, taking care of my own trauma responses so that I don't exhaust and unfairly project on the people who love me most, who don't deserve me dehumanizing them because of the way I was dehumanized in the past. So I don't know if this work is ever going to be done, y'all. for real. Because I am still very easily triggered, but at least whenever, like my therapist said, the hysterical is historical. Unless your life is literally in danger, whenever you are hysterically reacting to something, it's historical. And it usually has nothing to do with Anthony. So that is why I have my own, it's one of the many reasons. I mean, I work from home, but I knew if I'm ever going to live with a man, because I've been single my whole life, I've not let men hijack my life, except for that really abusive relationship, that if I'm going to live with a man and share my life with a man, I have to kind of put bumper rails in place so that I don't end up being way too attached to how he's feeling, because my nervous system, that's its default. So if you're like me and you can find like a kind of like a little woman cave kind of thing, a place, even if it's just without actual physical space, because I know that that's a privilege, to even be able to have space. I mean, crap, Virginia Woolf's been talking about this since for 100 years or whatever, a room of one's own. Her dad was literally a king baby, quiet rager. And she saw him literally unalive her mother and her sister through his stress, his weaponized moods. So, she has a lot of faults. I don't agree with everything Virginia Woolf said. But that one she was right on the mark with, man. A room of our own. And if we can't afford that, some sort of bubble, headphones, whatever it is, cut ourselves off from that source stress, which is not their fault, unless you're literally with a man who refuses to emotionally regulate. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about men who are actually safe. Don't think that you're not going to get triggered by men who are like healthy and not full of trauma, because human beings are not always happy, and they shouldn't have to be. It's not healthy. If you're like me and get so exhausted being around other people because you're so easily, look at my dog, so easily dysregulated. I'm sure there's other resources online and stuff, but I have found just trying to figure out a bubble for myself so I can calm myself down and not put that on someone else, so that I don't feel bad, so that he doesn't feel bad for having an emotion other than what Melanie wants him to feel, and so that it doesn't harm our marriage. He's working on himself a lot. I have to work on myself too. That's how this goes. We're here to learn and grow together. But if you're with a man who is grumpy pants all the time and you're always walking on eggshells around, that man is making a choice to not heal his stuff at the very least. Best case scenario, and not emotionally regulate. Worst case scenario, he's literally an abusive man and he's going to unalive you slowly through his nervous system, and he's doing it to control you. It's not safe, it's not healthy, and it's going to take years off of your life. And if you have children, they are probably going to repeat the same pattern, because that's what is normalized to them. Please take this stuff seriously, y'all. And there's tons of resources on, YouTube and all kinds of stuff. If you can't afford therapy, there's lots tapping, there's all kinds of stuff. Please learn to help regulate your nervous system so you don't sabotage relationships like I have almost done so many times with this man who has never done anything to justify the kinds of reactions I have that are really about another man in the past who didn't receive consequences of his actions, wasn't ever held accountable. Don't make the people that you love pay the price of the people who traumatized you.